My sister cut me out of her life to impress her boyfriend's family, so I stopped paying her $80,000 college tuition, but then she started calling me desperate when her fairy tale ended. My name is Donna, I'm 32, I live in Portland, and I own a small HVAC residential maintenance company. The job is not glamorous, no skyscrapers, no corner office, no designer suits, but it's something I built from the ground up after nearly a decade of tireless work. I'm proud of it, even if not everyone in my family feels the same. It happened this Thanksgiving, a day that should have been whole, but instead became the moment I realized my true place in the hearts of those I thought were closest. I just finished a long maintenance job, pulling out of the client's house as the sky turned dusky. Driving home, I felt at ease. The business was closed for the holiday, all my employees had received their bonuses, and I'd picked up a bottle of high-end red wine to take to the family dinner. Ever since my father passed away, every Thanksgiving my mother cooked a huge feast, and everyone showed up. I'd never missed a single year. My phone buzzed. It was my mother, Helen. I answered, still smiling. "Hey, Mom, I'm on my way home. Do you want me to bring apple pie or mashed potatoes this year?" There was a strangely long silence on the other end of the line. Then she spoke, her voice a little shaky. "Donna, there's something I want to tell you, and I hope you understand." I frowned. "What's wrong, Mom?" "I think maybe this year, you shouldn't come to Thanksgiving." My foot almost slipped off the accelerator. "What? Why?" "It's Brittany. Her boyfriend is bringing his parents. They work in law. They're very traditional types. Brittany wants everything to feel a little more formal." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my heart pounding. "You mean I'm not allowed to come? I'm not family." "That's not what I mean, Donna. Of course, you're family. It's just, Brittany feels you might give the wrong impression." "What, because I'm an HVAC tech? Because I didn't go to an Ivy League school?" I interrupted, my voice already trembling. "Donna, don't make this harder." She sighed, her voice softening in that way I'd become far too familiar with, the tone she used when she was about to say something unforgivable but still expected me to swallow it without complaint. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. "Do you remember who paid Brittany's tuition?" "I paid all 4 years while she was at school in New York. Never missed a deadline. I gave her a future I never had." Mom went silent. Then, faintly, "It's just one night, Donna. We can see each other another time. Maybe brunch." I hung up. I didn't cry. I just sat in my car, hands still on the wheel, feeling hollowed out, like someone had ripped out a part of me I didn't even know I was clinging to. An hour later, while I was sitting quietly in my apartment, a text popped up from my cousin, Madison. "Thought you should know. Brittany told her mom she's embarrassed by you. Doesn't want her boyfriend's family to know someone in her family works with their hands." I read that line over and over, my grip on the phone so tight my fingers left marks on the screen. Brittany, the same sister who once called me her hero when I gave her her first laptop at 18, the same girl I walked 3 snowy blocks for just to get her rent money on time, was now embarrassed by me. And I knew that tonight, when everyone was sitting around the dinner table, toasting, laughing, no one would mention me. No one would save me a seat. No one would notice I wasn't there, because in their eyes, I never really was. I still remember the next morning, the early winter sun filtering through the kitchen window as if nothing had happened. I sat alone with a cold cup of coffee, the phone lying silently on the wooden table. I should have been baking a pie, picking out a dress, getting ready to laugh with my family, like every year. But this year, all I felt was emptiness. I scrolled mindlessly through social media, then, like a punch to the gut, I saw the photo. Posted by none other than Brittany. She was standing in the middle of Mom's living room, in a bright red dress, hand in hand with Mason. The dining room table behind them was perfectly set, fresh flowers, lit candles, everything impeccable. The caption read, "A warm Thanksgiving with the ones who matter most." I wasn't in the picture. Not a word about me. Not a question about where I was. Just as I put down my coffee, my phone buzzed again. Madison, my cousin, the only one in the family who still called me for reasons other than favors. Are you okay? Her first message read. I still hadn't replied when the next one arrived. I think you need to hear this, even if it hurts. Brittany told everyone Donna shouldn't come because she doesn't want her boyfriend's family to know she comes from a working-class background. She said, if Donna shows up, they'll think we live in a garage. I froze. I read it over and over, hoping I'd misread, that Madison was somehow playing a cruel joke, but I knew Madison wasn't like that. And deep down, I knew it sounded exactly like something Brittany would say. It wasn't the first time she'd acted aloof about my job. Once, I visited her dorm in sophomore year in my dusty work uniform after finishing a job nearby, and she quickly pulled me into a corner, whispering, "Can you please change your shirt? Everyone here is pre-law. It just looks weird." I let it slide. I always let it slide. I thought she was young and embarrassed. I thought she'd grow up and realize a person's worth isn't measured by the starch in their collar. But I was wrong. I'd been wrong from the beginning. I had paid Brittany's tuition at Columbia from the moment she stepped foot on campus. Every semester cost over $18,000. I worked overtime. I skipped vacations. I turned down personal days just to make sure she never had to worry about tuition, books, or housing. I never asked for a thank you. I didn't need Christmas cards. I just thought if I helped her build a good life, at least I'd be welcomed at the family table. But in Brittany's eyes, I wasn't someone to be introduced. I wasn't someone who mattered. I closed my phone, heart pounding. Anger, shame, hurt, disappointment, all swirling inside me like a storm with no outlet. I went outside, watching the cars pass under a gray sky, and understood what hurt. It wasn't about not being invited. It was about being erased by someone I loved with everything I had. In that strange, silent moment, I knew I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't keep living as the one who was always discarded. I couldn't be the only one clinging to ties that were one-sided. I went back inside, sat at my desk, and opened the folder labeled Brittany's private tuition. The line read, next payment due in 14 days, $18,740. I moved the cursor to the button labeled Remove Payment Method. A small pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to remove your account information? This action cannot be undone. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then clicked Confirm. A small beep sounded, and just like that, it was over. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. The first call was from Mom. Before I could answer, another call came in, this time from Brittany. Both went straight to voicemail. I knew they wouldn't stop. I put my phone on silent and went back to work. At noon, I was checking the HVAC system at the Kenny Harris law offices when my phone lit up nonstop. A quick glance, 8 missed calls, 14 unread texts. I knew I should have ignored them, but then a message from Brittany made me pause. What did you just do? The school said my tuition isn't paid. Your account's gone. Call me now. Right after that, a message from Mom. Donna, you can't be this cruel to your sister. You know she has no one else but you. I stood frozen in the client's reception area, the clipboard in my hand suddenly cold. A shiver ran down my spine, not from the AC, but from the realization that in Mom's eyes, I was just the failsafe to prevent her daughter from failing. Not her child. Not someone who'd worked her hands raw for 10 years. Just a walking wallet. That afternoon, while I was driving home, the 13th call from Mom came through. I sighed and answered. Her voice erupted immediately, tense. Donna, you can't just walk away like this. Do you know how scared Brittany is right now? I kept my hands steady on the wheel, my voice calm. I know. And I think she should be scared. Don't you think this is too harsh, Mom? She continued, her voice cracking with anger. She's in her final year. What if they expel her? I let out a short laugh. Mom, Brittany is old enough to understand the consequences of her actions. She's an adult, not a child. I never promised I'd help her until graduation. I paused for a second. I promise to help my sister. But the Brittany you're defending today, that's not someone who sees me as family. I'm not obligated to keep enabling ingratitude. Mom went silent. Then, as always, she softened her tone, coating it with guilt. You're the only one in this family who can really help. Are you going to abandon your family? I bit my lip, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Family isn't made of people who only call when they need a bailout. Family doesn't cut you out of dinner just because your job isn't fancy enough. I'm not an endless ATM, Mom. A long sigh, then her usual closing line. You've changed. I smiled, bitterly. No, Mom. I've finally started living as myself. I ended the call. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the white ceiling, letting the silence envelop me. No more ringing phone. No more desperate texts. No more guilt trips. Then, a soft ding. A message from Brittany. Donna, I can't believe you'd do this to me. I've lost everything. I hope you're happy with your decision. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply, because if Brittany truly believed I destroyed her life with a single click, then maybe she never realized she was the one who started destroying everything in the first place. I don't know what happened after Brittany's last message, because for the next 3 days, my phone remained completely silent. No calls from Mom. No texts from distant relatives. Everything was quiet. And a year ago, I might have cried at the emptiness, but now, the silence felt like a rare gift. No expectations. No guilt. No more playing the role of the selfless sister. I was reviewing technical documents at the office when Madison called. Have you heard? Her voice came through, quiet and urgent. Hear what? I asked, though my gut already knew. Brittany showed up at Jordan's house this morning. I frowned. Jordan, Brittany's boyfriend. Not boyfriend anymore, Madison said, her tone low and deliberate. I sat up straight. What do you mean? Madison took a deep breath. Mason broke up with her. Moved out of the apartment this morning. Someone saw Brittany crying in Jordan's yard for almost an hour. I remained silent. For the first time in weeks, I was genuinely surprised. Do you know why? Madison continued. Mason told his mom that Brittany lied about who paid her tuition. He thought her parents were covering all the costs at Columbia. When he found out it was you, her sister, he was speechless. A chill went down my spine. Not from glee. Not from vindication. But from the realization that Brittany hadn't just erased me from her life. She'd replaced me with a version of reality where I didn't exist, just to fit into a world she thought she deserved more. How long did she lie to Mason? I asked. Almost the whole time, Madison said, hesitant. Mason said he felt like he'd been pulled into a long play where the main character was never real. That afternoon, I received an email from the Columbia Students' Office. Please be advised that the primary payment method has been removed from the student account of Brittany Calegua. Her financial status is currently unresolved. Please update a valid payment method by January 10th to avoid exclusion from the university. I didn't forward it. I didn't call Mom. I didn't inform Brittany. I simply skimmed the message and closed the screen. But of course, Brittany got in touch with Mason. They met that night at a familiar cafe in the Belmont district. I wasn't there, but Madison knew someone who worked at the place, and word spread like wildfire. Mason was already there when she showed up, 15 minutes late. Madison recounted, her voice a mix of pity and unease. She wore a silk dress, full makeup, like she was trying to salvage some last image of perfection. And Mason, he didn't let her say much. He asked her directly, "Why didn't you tell me the truth about Donna?" I pictured the scene, Brittany's face tightening, her hands twisting under the table. She told him she was embarrassed, that she didn't want him to think she was being taken advantage of, that the family situation was complicated, and she just wanted to keep a good image in front of Mason's parents. I wasn't surprised. That was the kind of language Brittany always used. Subtle, evasive, shifting the blame without ever stopping sounding innocent. But Mason didn't buy it. Madison continued. He told her, if you're mature enough to build a future for yourself, you should be mature enough to be grateful to whoever gave you that opportunity. I stayed silent. My heart ached, although I couldn't tell if it was for Brittany or because, for the first time, someone outside the family had said what I never dared to ask. Mason added one more thing. Madison finished. I can't love someone who's ashamed of their own family. Because if it's your sister today, it could be me tomorrow. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Brittany had lost her tuition. Now she'd lost her relationship. And the saddest part was, she still didn't understand why everything was crumbling. 3 days after that last call with Madison, I received a second email from Columbia. This is your final notice. If tuition is not paid by the January 10th deadline, student Brittany Calegua will be automatically withdrawn from spring semester enrollment. Please resolve this immediately to prevent disruption to academic progress. I read that line 3 times, but felt nothing. No more. I had given Brittany more chances than anyone, and all she'd done was turn me into something to be hidden behind silk curtains. That night, Brittany called. 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. Her messages poured in. I know I messed up. I was scared of being judged. You can't do this to me. I'll lose everything. You don't love me anymore. All those years were just fake. If I get kicked out, my future's over. I went silent. After the 10th call, I blocked her number. 2 days later, she used a different number to call again. When I blocked that too, the messages moved to email, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The last one read, if you don't answer, I'm coming to find you. And of course, Brittany did the one thing no one thought she'd dare to do. Monday morning, while I was in a meeting with my tech team about a new HVAC contract for a coastal hotel chain, the glass office door burst open so hard the security bell chimed. I looked up. Brittany was standing in the doorway, hair messy, mascara streaked from crying, her heels caked in mud. I need to talk to my sister, she shouted, freezing everyone in the room. I stood up, my gaze cold as steel. This is a place of business, Brittany. You can't cause a scene here. You're ruining my life. Brittany yelled, her voice full of despair. You can't just cast me aside like nothing happened. Before I could respond, security was already moving toward her. Ma'am, we need you to leave the building now. Don't touch me, Brittany snapped back, eyes wild. I'm the sister of the woman who runs this place. I took a step forward, calm and firm. You're the sister of the person who runs this place, not the one who runs it. You don't have the right to disrupt my work because you refuse to face the consequences of your own actions. You're abandoning me, she yelled one last time, but no one reacted. No sympathetic looks. No agreeing nods. Just the cold silence and her heavy footsteps as security escorted her out. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Mom. This time, I answered. Donna, what happened this morning? Brittany called me, said you had her thrown out of your office. She's humiliated. I didn't speak, sipping my water slowly. Do you know what it will mean if she gets expelled? Mom continued, her voice cracking. I do, I replied, firmly. And I think she needs to learn to take responsibility. Families don't turn their backs like this, she retorted. You're her sister. I was her sister. But to her, I've always just been a tool. When I stopped paying, I stopped being family. Donna, please, I beg you, I interrupted. I didn't kill myself working for 10 years just to be labeled an embarrassment. I took a deep breath. You should call a bank or learn how to say no like I did. I hung up. The next day, Aunt Carol called. Then Uncle Jeff. Even a high school friend I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade messaged me. Donna, is it true about your sister possibly getting expelled? People are saying you went too far. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because for the first time in my life, I was sure of one thing. I wasn't a walking wallet anymore. And I'd learned love cannot exist where there's exploitation. Not anymore. In the weeks following the incident at the office, I expected to be dragged into an endless battle with my family. And it came, just as I'd predicted. Late night calls. Relentless texts. All wrapped in those two words. Blood ties. You're too cold. She's still your sister, Donna. People are saying you've changed. You don't care about family anymore. Words that in the past would have made me weep, but now I simply left the phone on my desk, looked out the window at the pine trees swaying in the late-year wind, and allowed myself to be silent. No more defending. No more apologizing. I no longer needed to explain myself. One morning in mid-December, as I was reviewing ventilation blueprints for a new mall project, Madison texted, "Just saw your mom at the grocery store. She said Brittany dropped out and moved back home." Honestly, they both looked awful. I stopped typing, my eyes lingering on the message. She also said she still thinks it's your fault. I wasn't surprised. For my mother, responsibility was always something that could be reassigned, and I was usually the one who got it. Brittany failing because she couldn't face reality? Irrelevant. What mattered was that I dared to walk away. But instead of feeling sad, I felt relief. Because while they were still trapped in that circle of blame and denial, I was starting a new chapter in my life. With the money I used to spend on Brittany's tuition, I expanded my company. Hired 2 certified technicians. Upgraded to new carbon monoxide testing equipment. Even redesigned the office in a modern palette of neutral tones. I also landed a 3-year maintenance contract with a chain of coffee shops in the Pearl District. 6 figures now. I work not out of fear of lacking, but because I truly love what I do. No one makes me feel lesser for not wearing a corporate badge. No one asks, "So, when are you switching to a real job?" No one sighs when I say I run my own HVAC team. And most importantly, no one treats me like I'm invisible. On Christmas Eve, I sat alone on my couch, my moss green sweater wrapped around a tired body after a long day out. Neighbors' lights blinked on and off, and the sound of church bells echoed faintly in the distance. I poured myself a glass of white wine, planning to watch a comforting comedy before bed. Then my phone lit up. It was a message from Mom. "Donna, Christmas isn't the same without you. Everyone misses you. Call me." I don't know how long I stared at that message. Maybe just a few seconds, or maybe it was a whole lifetime folded into a single moment. I thought of all the Christmases past. I was always the one who brought the small tree, the one who wrapped everyone's gifts, the one who paid for dinner with money I could have spent taking care of myself. But no matter what I did, I was always not presentable enough for company. I took a deep breath and gently deleted the message. Not because I didn't miss them, not because I never loved my family, but because, for the first time, I'd learned to love myself more than the people who never truly valued me. I don't expect Brittany to change. I don't expect my mother to ever stop running from responsibility. I just hope that from now on, I can live a life where I don't need permission just to exist. A few weeks after Christmas, as Portland welcomed the first cold, wet rains of the new year, I received a handwritten letter from someone I least expected, my grandmother, Adeline Calegua. She hadn't lived with our family for years. After Grandpa passed away, she moved to a small house in the suburbs of Salem, almost a 3-hour drive away. I visited a few times a year, during the holidays, but she'd always been the one person in the family who never judged me for my career or lifestyle. All she ever asked was that I show up with a smile and the same calloused hands that built everything I had. The letter was neatly written, her slanted handwriting like the gentle tone of her voice. "My dear Donna, I don't know exactly what's been happening in the family lately, but I know this. When a woman like you finds the courage to set boundaries, a lot of people are going to feel uncomfortable. Don't let that stop you. Which one of them has sacrificed for you the way you've sacrificed for them? I'm proud of you, not because of the money you make or the contracts you sign, but because you've learned to protect your own heart." I read that letter 3 times. In the midst of all the guilt and blame, she was the only one who gave to me fully, without needing an explanation. And I realized that maybe she was the first person who made me believe that choosing myself isn't a betrayal. I used to believe family was unbreakable. That if I gave enough, Eventually, they would love me, accept me, be proud of me. But I was wrong. Because no one is obligated to love you if all they've ever learned is how to take. And you're not obligated to sacrifice yourself just because someone shares your last name. I spent too many years living as if my worth was measured by how much I could give. Every tuition payment. Every expensive birthday gift. Every vacation I canceled to work more hours. I used to think those were acts of love. But the truth is, love doesn't ask you to hide who you are. Love doesn't make you feel ashamed of the work that feeds you. Love doesn't require you to step back so someone else can shine. If someone expects you to do that, it's not love. It's control disguised as family. I no longer feel guilty when I go silent when mom texts. I no longer feel torn when relatives call me stubborn or cold. And I don't dream of Brittany showing up at my door, tears in her eyes, hugging me and saying she was wrong. I don't need that anymore. I've learned to hold myself up, to stand firm in the storm of opinions, and to clearly say, I wasn't born to be a backdrop in someone else's story. If you're in a situation like mine, where you give, and all you receive is silence, judgment, or indifference, this is what I want you to remember. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of courage. Choosing dignity over dysfunction doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, it means you've grown. It means you finally know your worth. I don't know if Brittany will ever learn that lesson. I don't know if my mother will ever stop running from responsibility. But I do know this. I will never again be who I used to be, the one who quietly paid the bills but never got a seat at the table, the one who always did everything right but was still treated like an embarrassment. I finally chose myself. Not out of revenge, but to finally live Donna's story. It's a powerful reminder that family cannot survive without respect and acknowledgement. In a world where people often judge by appearances or status, she found the strength to draw the line and choose herself. Not out of spite, but out of self-love. She shows us that love doesn't mean blind sacrifice. Saying enough is enough, refusing to be used, is the first step to reclaiming your worth and living a life that is free, dignified, and empowered.